Hi everyone, and welcome back to Effective Leadership Strategies in the Workplace. Today we're going to be talking about growth mindset as leaders. And we've talked about growth mindset before, but it's a topic that never gets old and it's a topic that keeps evolving. So we're going to focus on growth mindset as leaders. So I was watching a video and the speaker was Dean Furness, who's a wheelchair athlete. And he said something so profound. He said, to overcome challenges, stop comparing yourself to others. To overcome challenges, stop comparing yourself to others. To be the very best, you have to be the most capable you. Know what your average is, and then you'll really know what your good is and what your bad is. And then think about how long do you let yourself stay in a place of average or a place of below average. Once you know what your average is, you know what your good looks like, and you know what your less than average looks like. So remember, to be successful, to be a great leader, stop comparing yourself to others. So I want you to think about doing the following things to help kind of fortify that ability to have a growth mindset. And if you don't have a growth mindset yet, then doing the following things can help you to build a growth mindset. The first thing you can do is view challenges as opportunities. View challenges as opportunities. Think about that for just a moment. When you're faced with something challenging, it creates stress for you. And you can either fight it, or you can take the flight attitude, or you can face it. You can change your perspective, you can change your mindset, and say, how does this particular challenging task, this particular challenging situation create an opportunity for me? What is there that I can learn from this particular situation or this particular event which may be causing you stress or which is particularly challenging? A new challenge is a new opportunity. It gives you a moment, in that moment, to identify whether you're going to have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. You can either shut down, you can find all the negatives in the situation and think of all the ways that this is going to impede your ability as a leader. Or you can step back, you can look at it as a new opportunity to build your leadership competency and your leadership skill set and use that challenge as a stepping stone to opportunity. The next thing you can do is prioritize learning over seeking approval. Just like with the previous example we used, there are opportunities to learn from every challenge, from every event that you will face, that you will encounter as a leader. So prioritize learning. What are you learning? How are you learning? It doesn't necessarily have to be formal learning, but that helps. Professional development, asking your supervisor, talking to your supervisor, learning from your colleagues. So that means you have to be quiet for a moment. You have to be introspective, and you have to stop talking here and in here so that you can listen, not listen to respond. Listen to truly hear and to truly engage in what someone is telling you. That's an opportunity for learning. Next thing you can do is focus on process over the end result. We have talked before about process, the value of process versus product. Are you just racing as a leader to get to the end point? Racing, negating everything else that's happening around you to get to the finished product? Or are you valuing each step along the process? Because each step along the process is what builds that foundation, right? It creates scaffolded learning. When you master step A, you move on to step B. When you master step B and C, you move on to step D. The process is so important in you understanding how you got here. And if there's mistakes along the way, it's the process that informs you about how you got to that mistake and what you need to do differently the next time to avoid making that same mistake. But the benefit of valuing the process versus the product, the process is going to lead to the product. So the benefit of valuing the process is that you're learning helpful tips, helpful strategies. You're accumulating new competencies and new skill sets along the way so that you're creating this really sound foundation for you to be successful at the end as a leader. You need to cultivate a sense of purpose. Think about the big picture. Understand first what your why is, right? Understand why you're doing what you're doing. You can't create this sense of engagement and people buying into your vision if you yourself don't create a sense of purpose and understand what your purpose is and why you're walking the walk or walking the path that you have chosen. Understand and create a sense of purpose. Understand the bigger picture. And only then will you get people to kind of walk in your vision, to understand your vision, and to understand, even on a bigger scale, the vision of the team and the purpose of the team. Then the entire team has something to work collaboratively toward. Choose learning well over learning fast. I think sometimes we put such a preference and such a priority on learn it as fast as you can and implement it as fast as you can. But if you don't have all of the pieces to the puzzle, then you're not learning it well. There's still those small components that are missing kind of from your learning bank, from your experience bank, from your knowledge bank, from your practical application bank. When you learn it so fast and you're not taking time to learn it well along the way. As you're learning, ask questions, challenge those things that don't quite make sense to you. Think about how you could see it differently or how you do see it differently and how you could apply it in your real workspace, in your real role as a leader. So learn well versus learning fast. Don't equate making mistakes with being a failure. Making mistakes and being a failure are not the same thing. Making mistakes is a part of the learning process. It's a part of the doing process. If you wake up and you're a leader and you think that there's not going to be an opportunity for you to have a misstep and for you to make a mistake, then you've not been a leader before. Leaders will make mistakes, but it's those effective, successful leaders that step back, look at the missteps or the mistakes that they've made, both as a leader individually and as a team leader, and analyze, go back and analyze and think about how could I do that better? If you're brave enough, ask your team, how could we do that better next time? And really listen, analyze, strategize, forecast, but do not equate mistakes with failures. Learn from the mistakes of others. When you're working with someone else, when you're leading someone else, they're going to make mistakes just like you make mistakes. You don't have to repeat those same things because it was someone else's journey. Look at what happened, analyze what happened, talk about what happened, and then learn from those mistakes. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to be more successful along that path. Remember, mistakes don't equal failures, they equal opportunities. Learn to receive constructive criticism. I have had many supervisors tell me that feedback is a gift. When you're in the midst of it and it's constructive feedback, it doesn't always feel like a gift. It doesn't always feel good. But as a leader, you really have to step outside of those feelings and think strategically about what you're being told and what feedback you're being given. We have to step outside of those emotions. We have to identify that something is upsetting us. But then professionally, we need to think about, how is my leader seeing me? Let me think about this feedback that I'm getting, whether it's from a leader or a team. Let me think about this feedback or constructive criticism that I'm getting and really dive into, how can I do this differently? How can I do this better? The next thing you can do is cultivate grit. So when I say grit, I mean, don't be so afraid of missing short-term goals. Cultivate grit means stick to the plan. Even if there's bumps along the journey, even if there's potholes on the road, stick to the plan. When you set short-term and long-term goals for yourself, professionally and personally, and help your team to do the same, there's going to be many opportunities where something doesn't go the way that you thought it would go. It doesn't mean you abandon the entire plan. It doesn't mean you abandon the vision or the mission. Create clarity around the plan, create buy-in around the plan, and then stick to the plan. You have to be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So cultivating grit means sticking to that plan even when things get tough, even when things get stressful. Now, it means also that you're going to make slight changes and slight adjustment. When you're cultivating grit, you're thinking about long-term plan. The next thing to remember is that growth is never finished. It's not like you complete a project or you get a promotion and you say, yes, I'm done. It's not like, when you're in kind of formalized education, you get your degree and you're like, yes, I'm done, it's over. Learning still happens. It may not be in a formalized classroom, it may not be in a formalized setting, but learning and growth continually happens, you have to nurture that growth. You have to continue to learn. You have to commit yourself to the learning process, and you have to encourage your teams to learn. And finally, remember, it takes time to succeed in anything. Give yourself the grace and the patience to take that time and really invest in yourself and your team, because you're the leader that's going to set the example. You're the leader that's going to model those best practices and those effective strategies so that you can be successful and your team can be successful in the workplace. So I want to thank you once again for joining me for Effective Leadership Strategies in the Workplace. If you like this video, please don't forget to share it with your colleagues, with your supervisors, with your friends, and we'll see you here next week.